looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 805, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbprou.com.
Good evening and welcome to Leadership Live at 805. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and excited to have you back again joining us tonight. Each week we have a tremendous guest, and we really talk about key topics that are important to your business success. At the end of the day, what I've found is one of the most important keys for success in business is leadership. So, developing your leadership skills is key. And, what better way can you develop your leadership skills by learning from successful leaders and building your knowledge of business so you can be more successful. So that's what this show is all about. This week, our special guest is Damien Jackson. Damien's done some great things. We're going to focus on what they don't tell you about raising capital, because that's, a key thing. As you know, most small businesses do not get the financing that they need. And many times it's because they're not prepared. In my book, Running Your Small Business Like a Pro, I developed a system called Pray for Financing. Where you prepare, you research, you assemble, and you yield. But those are key things in preparation. But you also have to understand what the process is and how to do it, and especially on the equity side, because it's kind of mysterious. And that's why we're going to talk about some of the secrets to being able to do that, and how you could be prepared to be able to do something like that. So Damien Jackson, I've known him for quite a few years. He's been doing great things on the financial management, financial services side, and created his own financing company that works with businesses, and actually specifically smaller businesses. So I think he's the right person to talk to about this topic. So let me invite Damien on and we'll get started. Hey, Damien, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great, Andrew. Good evening. How are you?
Excellent. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening and share some of your expertise and knowledge with the business owners who can benefit from it.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a busy day just getting home, but I'm happy to be here.
Okay, excellent. So, definitely, to get where you are, owning a financial management company, financing and financial services, you just don't do that overnight. Yeah. So, there's a path that you followed, and I'm sure you learned a lot of things along the path. So if you could take a few minutes, just talk a little bit about, your path, where you started, and kind of how you got to where you are now.
Sure. So when I first started in the financial industry, I had no connect. I knew no one, and I really didn't have a leg up. So what I decided to do was to walk up and down Wall Street with my resume in hand, and I was kind of talking my way into the buildings. And luckily for me, there were sisters that were in the security arena. I would walk in and I would say, "Hey, I have an appointment. I have an interview here at 9 o'clock. I'm meeting with John. He's like this tall. He's got brownish, blondish hair." And they knew I was trying to get in there. And they would call someone down, and inevitably somebody would say, "You have no interview. Please get out of here." Well, a few months go by, and I finally find myself at the end of Wall Street with about $2.50 left in my pocket. And, that basically was lunch. So I'm sitting there having my lunch from the mystery meat trucks at the end of Wall Street and trying to get my bank and figure out the next move, the next firm to go try to walk into. And a gentleman comes downstairs and he says, "Hey, you're the crazy kid passing out his resume." I said, "Yeah, that's me." He says, "Well, if you come upstairs and you like what you see, I'll give you a job today." So I started out doing that, and I started out in valuation, where we sort of decompartmentalize companies to sort of figure out their true value before we floated them on the market. I was part of a team where we raised over $270 million, and we took a few companies public on US and UK exchanges. From there, I was allowed to start to build a book of business, largely in Europe, that went very, very well. And unfortunately, 2008 came and wiped out my business. But stubborn me decided that I wanted to stick in the industry. It just sort of made a lot of sense to me. For one, sort of the genesis that got me motivated to be in the financial industry was the fact that, my mother had basically lost her retirement savings in the market, only being invested in Lucent Technologies. And as a 17-year-old kid, I realized, I said, "Hey, and this lack of financial literacy in our community." My mother was an engineer there for many, many years and ended up losing everything. So that was sort of the motivation to go and say, "Hey, there's something here." So I kept pushing, and I finally got an opportunity to work at Merrill Lynch, working with some ultra high net worth families and other institutions. And I kind of got the lay of the land and got a better understanding of how the financial markets worked from a macro sense, and sort of started to put the pieces together. Still then, we still were, found ourselves moving to Morgan Stanley, and then we wanted to be the investment group at an insurance shop. And then I realized, I know something. We can do the same thing that we were doing for ultra high net worth business owners and families and trusts. And we just take a zero. The tactics and strategies still work, right? We can still apply those same principles to people in the lower and middle market, as they call it. We'll see some success. And we did, and we do. So the tactics work. We decided to go off on our own and put our name on the door. Finally, we did that. So for the past, 3 or 4 years now, we've been rocking and rolling, and it's been great. It's been a trajectory that, it makes me say there's something that we should have done as a team a lot sooner. So that's sort of how I got here.
Excellent, Damien. So you said a few things I didn't even realize. You could have been the movie The Pursuit of Happiness could have been you.
A little bit. And what's funny? I got him on the phone one time.
Okay.
Because I called him every day, found his secretary, and she's like, "Listen, you got to talk to this kid." And he jumps on the phone and he's like, "Why would I do business with you? I can get any deal I want." I said, "Because nobody called you with this deal today." And he said, "Fine, I'll hear you out." I got my 2 or 3 minutes, and he said, "That sucks." They hung up the phone, but he at least gave me an opportunity. So okay. I got him on the phone. He's a good guy. He's definitely a hero of mine. Somebody that I look at and say, that's someone I want to be like.
Okay, excellent. So great. So we're going to have a great talk today, and really discuss some good things. Definitely appreciate everybody joining in. We welcome your comments. We welcome your questions. So please keep them coming. And we're going to get into some things with Damien. But before we do that, we're just going to take 1 minute to just share a little bit about the Small Business Pro University, because we produce it through the Small Business University, and it'd be good for everybody to kind of just know what it's all about. So we'll be back with Damien in a minute, and then we'll be talking about secrets to financing your business. Do you own your business, or does it own you? Is your business growing, and are you making enough money? As a business owner, there are so many things you need to know to become more successful. Hello, my name is Andrew Frazier, the Business Growth Pro and CFO. I created the Small Business Pro University for you. Small Business Pro University has self-paced, dynamic, multimedia learning experiences created by more than 20 instructors who are business owners just like you. Small Business Pro University will empower you to become a masterpreneur by learning the secrets to creating a successful enterprise, to go from working in your business to working on your business. Take advantage of our strategic coaching program, or just simply choose the courses that you need at www.sbprou.com. We will empower you to thrive and not just survive, and make more money in any business environment. Welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. Hanging out here with my man Damien Jackson, and we're just talking small business, taking a few minutes to really share some key things that are valuable. So, Damien, financing, especially equity financing, can be a real challenge for business owners. But let's start with, what's the difference between equity and debt? Because not everybody knows that and fully understands that.
Sure. So the difference for, at the end of the day, equity is something where someone's going to own a piece of your business after they give you a cash injection and get you liquid. It's not going to cost you. There's not going to be any debt service along the way, but you are going to give up a piece of your idea. You're going to give a piece of your dream to help get you to the next level. Debt, on the other hand, debt is something where you're having to pay that back. There's going to be an interest on it. And it's not something that is suggestible so early on if you can help it, so to speak. But that's a major difference. I do think that there's a lot of people that don't understand the benefits and the differences, the pros and cons of each. So when it comes to your debt, you want to really pay attention to the kinds of debt you're taking on as a business, right? Is this debt going to be getting you to the next level? Is this debt something where you're taking it out of fear and you're getting charged exorbitant interest rates? I see it every day, Andrew, where I see people come into our office and they take out these cash advance loans and they have no plan for it. And next time they turn around, they're paying 46% interest, 70% interest. And it is an odorous loan. And it's difficult to come out of, and it's difficult to kind of dig your way out of that hole. However, oftentimes entrepreneurs take that route because it's easier. It's the least resistance, because on the equity side, you really do have to know your numbers. You have to be a small business pro. You should have your around it. And a lot of times business owners don't want to look at the numbers. So instead of doing that, right, we'd rather take on debt. They don't want to take see everything in the cold light of day, so to speak. Equity, being able to talk to institutions and angel investors, is going to force you to do that. So many are scared.
Okay. So fear is cool. So now there's a lot of misconceptions about getting equity financing. I'm sure you run into them all the time. People come in and think it's something different or expect something different. Can you just share some of those? We'll get into detail about them as we go, but share some of the key things that you run into.
Sure. So some of those misconceptions are, number one, that your business is not suitable for investment, right? I think that misconception, you'd be surprised the types of angel investors where you actually do fit within their investment criteria. Many of these people create these sort of black boxes of investment that sort of dictates how they can deploy their funds. So oftentimes they will say, hey, listen, we want to make sure that we're putting money aside for businesses that look this way in the lower middle market. Okay. They may not be doing $10 million worth of EBITDA, but if they're doing $1 million worth of EBITDA and they're showing growth over time, that's something that we might be able to get behind. And I think that is a common misconception. The other misconception I find is on the other end of the spectrum as well, that it's like Shark Tank, right? I hear that a lot. So, oh, well, it's kind of like, it's nothing like Shark Tank at all. In fact that, there are, wealthy people investing in a small business, the parameters around it, the knowledge and the terminology that's needed to know to be able to elicit those funds from highly sophisticated investors is a challenge. I hear people say things all of the time, like, I just need somebody with a lot of money that, doesn't know what to do with it. And, they can put it into my business and get a great rate of return. And when I hear things like that, I say to myself, there's very few people out there that have a lot of money and have no idea what to do with it. I don't know any. Most times that money is geared towards making them more. It's put into a bucket that is laser focused on something they know is going to give them a set rate of return if they do it properly. It's very formulaic for them. There's a lot less feelings and a lot less heart. That does come into play some, but largely it's formulaic. We know that if the company's doing X, Y, Z, if the executive team has this sort of gravitas behind them, if they have this kind of momentum and this kind of traction, if we add our equity, if we add our liquidity to this, they're going to be able to scale. The other misconception, I think, is a huge one, is we believe that the idea is investable. And really, on the private equity front, what they're really doing is they're giving you money to scale. They're buying into a business that's already successful, has shown that the proof of concept is done, and they're giving you funds to scale it a little bit further. And normally what happens, they're going to put some kind of milestone or benchmark along with those monies to say, hey, you need to get to X, and then we'll be able to deploy the next round of funding. That should get you to the next level. And that's what you want. Planning for that and understanding that you need to build a business, not just having a great idea. Great ideas are great, but there's a lot of great ideas that are bankrupt and end up on the cutting room floor because they never really built business around the idea.
Okay. No, that's great. So basically, sometimes it's not suitable. And I guess many times, or sometimes you might be eligible even though you don't think you are.
Yes.
You got to believe in the idea. You got to have a believable, you have to be credible, which is good. And you got to be able to scale. And
absolutely.
Everybody throws around the word scale. What does that really mean?
Sure. It means that you can take a mustard seed, which is your business, and you can turn it into a field, right? You can take a very small acorn and you can turn it into a forest, because you've shown that you can do it once. And the idea is that, again, it's a scientific method. We knew that we put in X amount and we got a Y production. If we double that, then we should be able to get the same. Now, of course, there might be some, the law of depreciating returns when it comes to that. But at the end of the day, we know that it's producing revenue. It has the ability to. So you want to make sure that you get your proof of concept down, out of beta, of course, but the proof of concept on your business model is efficient. And that way, a cash injection really is going to get you to that next level. But there was something you had brought up just before then, credibility. I think credibility is one of the topics that need to be spoken about, because a lot of times we equate credibility with, and that sometimes can be the case, but credibility can also come from your experience. It can also come from you being completely transparent and being aware of the lay of the land of your competition. Part of that credibility is putting together the right team, right? Because they're saying to themselves, all right, we need the guys can scale. All right, you have the proof of concept down. Do you have the team in place to help you, right? Because that oftentimes that's what holds you back. So I have every idea and they're stuck at a particular number. That number can be, I don't know, they can be stuck at $5 million in revenue. And they've been there for the 3 years and some kind of capital injection to get them to the next level, right? Do you have the team in place? Do you have the sales force? Do you have the customer success manager or director in place? Do you have the right branding and marketing CMO in place to make sure that your message is getting out properly to the right people? Do you make sure that once they come in that they're well taken care of? And not only well taken care of, but that you have the ability to upsell and have some type of sticky business. And then that sales director is key too, amongst compliance and legal and having the right capital advisory. All of those things come into play that gives you that credibility. Now you go from credibility to scale is a lot easier to tell that story of your ability to do so. And if you don't have those people in place, that should be part of your conversation as far as the use of funds, right? So the use of funds in your pitch deck, when you're talking about what you're going to use their money for, somebody's going to write you a check. They want to know what you're using it for. You're going to explain how you're going to put this team together that's now going to fit into the model that you've created that now is going to allow you to scale that should give you multiples on the revenue than you've previously had. That's what the investors want to hear.
Okay, makes sense. And so, when you talked about scaling, it's one thing to grow from the mustard seed into the field, but at the same time, you need to have operational leverage in that the more you sell, the more profitable each sale is as you grow.
Yes.
So, that's a key piece that goes with that. Now, you talked about businesses, but, there's two key types of businesses: service businesses and product businesses. Which one's the best fit for that type of financing, or just talk a little bit about, that type of financing for service businesses, how it's different from product businesses.
Sure. So you'll find that the service business tends to have a higher multiple when you're talking about valuation. And that's important because that's really going to tell them, give them confidence in how their money is going to be returned to them and the return on their money, right? I think that's a humongous difference from, the product business. It's easier for them to put a number on it. Really, there's not, it's very rare you have, these brand new types of products that, are so, groundbreaking. It's normally we're building better mousetraps at this point, right? The real part that's really, providing the returns that institutions and investors are looking for are on the service side, right? And, SaaS as a service, software, that kind of thing. That is what really is driving the huge multiples. I think the difference is it may be easier one end on the product side to get debt financing and feel more comfortable. And it may be easier to get equity financing on the service side. So, but both can get both, right? So product can get equity or debt, right? There's some equity plays that they love. There are institutions out there specifically set up to go into your niche, right? So it could be an agriculture niche. It can be, there are large institutions, small institutions that are interested in your business as a product. What they want to see on the product side is they want to see how you've created best of breed. Why are you better than every other competitor? They want to see that you've been able to get supply chain under control, that is not so centralized in one place, that you have some controls in place to get you around the inflation. and other factors on a macro level. So that way you do have some price control going forward. They want to see that, you have a good understanding of how to increase your profit margin as you're selling more, because that's what should happen. Right? You should be able to not only scale on the product side, but you should be able to, collect more profit from that revenue, because you're going to be able to, create a better price margin for yourself. Right. On the I guess the service side, the software side, that's more so that side, the idea of, hey, listen, this is going to be something that's going to be ubiquitous, right? I think that's the idea of integration and ubiquity is huge. And that's kind of the talk that you hear some of the institutions speaking on, is that, hey, is this something that everyone's going to have on their phone? Is this something everyone's going to have in their house? Is this a technology that people are going to 5 years from now say, I don't know how we lived without it? Those are the things that you're seeing large checks written for. And there's always the mainstays of Airbnb, Uber, that kind of thing. And now we can't imagine a world without them, where it was on whatever have thought that would have made sense to do. So I think that's where the difference may lie. But both product and service each can get equity or debt. It just may look a little bit different.
Okay. All right. No, that makes sense. And, definitely service businesses tend to have higher margins and higher profitability that drives the higher multiples. So,
Yep.
One thing is, you said a lot of people could potentially be eligible, but, for small businesses, what would you say the floor is to what the minimum that you need to have in place to be eligible? And, are mainstream businesses of interest? Because my understanding is usually it's like tech, media, and entertainment, because they grow faster. And just for the thing,
there's something to that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's something to that. Like, the Main Street businesses do get left behind on the equity side, right? There's no question about it. And I think the ability to demonstrate scale as a Main Street business, as I call them, when you come out your house, you go downtown, you're going shopping at mom and pop there. What does that look like? How do you do that? So one of the things that we look at is say, hey, listen, you may not be ready for the institution, but your family and friends, that family and friends round might get you there, right? And I think it's the forgotten round, Andrew. They are the most disrespected people, but when you think about it, the most disrespected on your capital stack, when you think about it, those are the loyalist people, and those are the ones that took the risk with you, right? And I think that's where we should focus on as Main Street businesses, and say, hey, listen, I want to make you a part of my business. I want to be able to open up a second location. I want to expand into the space next door. I want to be able to do that. And you see this every day. For them to make those moves, what you'll see them happen is they'll borrow money to do that. And sometimes they'll borrow the wrong kind of money, when they could have gone to a family and friends and created a round for themselves to give themselves that much more cushion and runway. And then if you want to borrow some money after that to increase your burn rate, increase your time frame from, let's say that burn rate was 6 months, now you extend it out to 18 months, and you have cash and equity there to hold you up. Now you can blow out that wall and build to the next spot. Now you can talk about that second location, and you can do the research, the proper research, to make sure you're going in the right place. I think the family and friends round is where Main Street businesses need to focus. Okay. And also Reg CF offering, which is a crowdfunding offering. I don't think that should be something ruled out for Main Street businesses. I think that's something that they should explore, because it's possible, if you got a nice little business that's been running for a little while, you have traction, you're a part of the community. Those are the businesses people want to get behind. those are your neighbors on the crowdfunding platforms, and the people in your give them an opportunity to own a piece, give them an opportunity to support. You would be with how much traction you can get there.
Okay. Great point. Definitely. I always say that your most important investor is you. But beyond that, friends and family can be the next best, potentially. It could also be the next worst, depending on how you set it up and how your business performs. But what would be some best practices about, friends and family equity and how to do it the right way?
Right. So I hire a professional to put together because you always want to create sort of like an arm's length away from the raise, right? You want to make sure that there's a third party in there that's dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and making sure that you have all of the right things in place to make everyone feel comfortable. And it's always good to get a professional in there in between between you and your friends and family to say, hey, we're watching over things. One of those things that you want to make sure of as well is to make sure that you're transparent with what's happening. I think that's where things get lost between the friends and family round, is that we want to hide sometimes when things aren't going right, or we want to keep a front of how well the business is actually doing versus fiction versus reality, right? So I think that comes into play quite often, more so than because everyone understands, whether it's family and friends, angel investors, family offices, everybody knows that there's a risk to this. And they understand that, the possibility of them losing all of their money is there. But also they're putting their trust in you. So you being able to be as transparent as possible and letting them know the dangers that await ahead, some of your challenges, right? Your dreams, and just this is what's going to be. So tell them why it's possible that this may not work. I think that that's a huge, big conversation that gets people to the next thing. Talking to family and friends, yes, you got to make sure your business is tight. You want to make sure your numbers are all there. You have to make sure of that. No question about it. You also have to make sure that you're being very honest about what can go wrong. And you want to put professionals in place that are going to be able to explain to them in detail all of the legalities around how they're protected or not protected. I think that that's huge as well. So I think if you get over some of those hurdles and you have the right people in place, I think that a family and friends round can go swimmingly. I think it can go very well. Now, if the business goes under and your family and friends lose their money, you don't want to hide, right? I mean, this is part of it. This is part of the conversation to say, hey, listen, it's possible where you can go wrong, but if you believe in me and you've seen that I have some traction, and what I would also suggest is, if you're going to do a family and friends round, have your proof of concept done, your business model is done. If, let's say, you're a Main Street business and you have a restaurant, you want to be seasoned a little bit, right? You don't want to go to the family after 4 months or 6 months, because it would look like you're going out of business. You really want to go to them when it's time to, hey, we're doing good. I've got my footing. We're growing. I feel it's steady, but I really feel like if we added an X, we went to the next level, and that's why I want to bring you in. Nobody wants to catch a falling knife. That's just not something anyone wants to do. And if you listen, here's our numbers, here's how we're growing, I want to get you involved, and have a reason why you want to get them involved, not just because they're a possible check writer. Ask, there might be some talent around you, some people that might say, hey, I really would like your advice. I really, your background in X, Y, and Z really could help me here. Creating that war chest of knowledge around you, it never hurts. It really doesn't.
Okay. So no, that's cool. So definitely, when you're doing that, friends and family, those are good points. I especially like making sure that you have a professional or someone in there who can be independent and make sure everybody has the right expectations. Make sure that your business plan, that you have a business plan, and that it makes sense. Because many times they don't, and many times they don't have a business plan, or even if you do, it's not complete and it may not be viable. So,
so can I just make a point on that, because you hit on such a point. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. First off, a business plan is not your dreams and desires and hopes for how the business is going to work out, right? That is not what it is. You want to focus on making sure that everyone has an understanding of the problem that you're solving. That's a key point. Not just what it is that you do, but what are you solving, and why is it a problem that anybody cares about? Why do we care? Why do we care about what it is that you're doing? Why do we care about you? Why should you be the person that we're going to give the money to? All of those things need to be answered in the business plan. So some of those business plan templates that you saw there, they're hurting you, right? Because they have you believing that this is good enough to get you over the hump, and it's really not. You really need something a little bit more in depth, a little bit more scientific, that is going to lay out for everyone that reads that business plan, that they understand what you do, they understand who you do it for, they know why you're the best person to do it, right? And what's your differentiator, what's going to be your competitive advantage. All of these things need to really be laid out and be very transparent with everyone. So that way, whoever picks that business plan, you could leave it on the New York subway and somebody could pick it up and say, this sounds amazing, and be willing to give you a call. That's how good your business plan should be.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, no, definitely. Even though it takes time and effort, it's some of the best time and effort you can invest.
Great.
And and definitely getting it reviewed and getting help is key, because
absolutely,
having a different perspective. And one thing I always say is, generally you are not your target market. So just because you would like it doesn't mean that's the right thing for who you're trying to sell it to.
Right.
So no, that's cool. So now I haven't gotten to Daryl's question, but let's just he says, what criteria is needed to join an investment fund? And I think also he might have meant we should also look at it as to get financed from an investment fund, because I think that might be more of what we were talking about. So, but if you can take a stab at that.
Sure, I'll try to do both. So on the investment fund front, if you want to join an investment fund and be one of the check writers as a limited partner, because how that normally works is you'll have someone like myself that's going to build out a financial model of how we're going to deploy funds in a particular market. And we're going to raise money to be able to do that. And we can do that from a couple of different sources. If you're an angel investor and you're saying, hey, I really like the portfolio Damien invests in, I like how he has it built out, he's somebody I want to get behind, let me go ahead and give him $5 or $10 million. It really is that easy, that where you're going to be able to look at the landscape and say, I want to be part of the ESG movement, or I want to be a part of MWBEs, and I like what they've done, and I see the providence of what they're doing, and I want to be a limited partner, right? So that's as far as you being a limited partner on the investment side. But being the one to have the checks written for, you want to make sure that, number one, your story is compelling. I think that's key. It has to be compelling. It has to be something that creates some kind of conviction where people are going to say to themselves, this blows me away. This is a disruptor in the marketplace. This is something that, the world probably will not do without in 10 or 15 years. Could you imagine just there not being any Uber at this point? Like, even if Uber goes out of business, someone is going to come up with another ride share that's going to be comparable. The world has just changed. We've seen a shift. If you have that, you're going to have the ear of some investment bank or venture capital fund, right? Making sure that you have some traction. You're out of beta. You're at the tail end of your proof of concept, and you're at the stage of scale. That is also beneficial. Showing that you have exponential growth. Being able to handle that out is huge. Making having a intellectual property that is so unique that it can be applied to industries. All of those things come into play. There's no doubt about it. You want to make sure that you have built out an institutional grade data room, right? So that's going to make sure that your pitch deck is in there and it's super sharp, right? And your business plan is not your pitch deck. It's two different things. And you may want to have multiple pitch decks for multiple type of investors that you're going after. You want to make sure that inside of that data room is in that tax for your tax returns, your P&Ls. You want to have your contracts and your purchase orders in there. You want to have anything that makes you look good and tells the story of what's gone wrong is key, because oftentimes founders want to get around the idea of, hey, we failed in the first 6 months at a couple of things and we learned and we grew. And that's what investors want to hear. They don't want to hear that you're some golden child that never made a mistake. That's never, almost no one's going to write a check for that. What they want to hear is that we made some mistakes, we figured it out, either we hired someone or we dusted ourselves off and we figured out how to make it work. I think that's, those are the conversations that kind of get you there. But, there's a lot that goes into being able to elicit a term sheet. But to be fair, it starts with having a business that has traction, has dollars coming in the door, has customers, right? All of those things are really the baseline of it all. I hope I answered the question. If I didn't, please feel free to follow up.
Yep. So yeah, definitely, Daryl. If we didn't, feel free to follow up. I think that was a great explanation. So now I think that small business can be tough, and I would say maybe a quarter of the businesses maybe fall in the category that you talked about of sort of doing okay and all. So what if you're not doing okay?
Sure. Yeah.
What are your options?
Right. So if you're not doing okay, the first thing I would tell you to do is figure out why you're not doing okay, right? Because the idea that every business is something that needs an equity injection or an investor behind it is just not the case, right? Most times, if you have a small business that is a Main Street business and you're servicing the community and you're doing well, there is absolutely nothing wrong with making, $200,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year. You're a fabric of the community. There's nothing wrong with staying there. If you're not there and you're doing poorly and you're in need of you're thinking you need capital to get you back to where you were or past it, I would tell you to take a hard look at what's been going wrong, because you don't want to compound the problem. Number one, an investor is going to come in there. If you're looking for an equity investor is going to come in there. He's going to say, hey, listen, this looks terrible. I mean, I'm going to be throwing good money after bad. You already screwed your money up. I'm not going to let you screw my money up, right? And when that happens, then it's okay. Well, I want to show you that I can actually get this done. So let me go ahead and borrow something to get back where I was. And so oftentimes, if you really haven't examined with a fine-tooth comb why it hasn't been going the right way, what's going to end up happening is you're going to compound your loss. You're going to make things that much worse because you're already like we used to say, you're hustling backwards, right? You're borrowing money in a falling company, and now you're left holding the bag, and at the end of the day, you find yourself deep in debt. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is say, hey, if I'm not doing well, if things aren't going the way that I intended the business to do, or my vision was, why is that? Is it a macro issue? Is it a COVID issue? Is it a chain issue? Is it a China issue? Is it a government regulation issue? Is there someone that I can speak to that might be able to solve the issue for me, solve the problem? You'll be surprised, how many problems the Small Business Administration can actually help solve for you, right? The National Chamber of Commerce, people don't realize that can reach out to and say, hey, I'm having this problem. I'm stuck because of the supply chain issue. Oh, well, here's some solutions for you. There's actually some money set aside for that. We have another supplier that you may not be aware of that might be able to help you out. All of those things come into play, but if you're not transparent, if you're not open, if you're not honest, it's difficult to do that. And I think what you're alluding to, Andrew, I think that's part of the problem, right? Things start going bad, and the ego comes into play and says, I'm going to do it by myself. I've done everything myself. I do it all, and you're not asking for help. So they're not giving people like yourself a call and say, hey, can you come fix me? Can you come take a look at what I'm not doing right? And that, I think, is step one, saying, what am I not doing right? And once you figure that out, once you really figure out what you're not doing right, now you can really figure out your solutions. Right? You can't really give yourself a solution if you don't know what's been going wrong exactly.
No, that's a great point. Alluding back to one of the comments you made before, something I had heard before, but kind of graphic in that you should never try and catch a falling knife.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, that would be a terrible thing to do. But, in business, that's what a lot of business owners want you to do.
Yeah.
Because, at that point, you said, you might be throwing good money after bad. So, so I guess the question is, if you are a falling knife, does that mean you should call it a day?
No.
What does that mean, since you can't get access to capital?
Right. So if you find yourself falling, you got to figure out what got you off of the counter, so to speak. What got you off course? What has happened to make you to put you in this position? And once you take a really honest look at it, and you are, you're transparent with yourself. It has to start. If you have to admit it's you, if it's your staff, at least now you know that you have to either retrain your staff, and more than likely that is the case. It's normally never a situation where you have to fire your staff. What we've noticed on our management consulting side is that more often than not, they just have not been trained properly. Most of your employees are there to help you be successful, right? So if it's your staff, that's you, again, being retrained. Is it your process? Is it something else that's kind of got a hole in the boat, so to speak, to use another analogy? And I use a lot of silly analogies because I think that we take a lot of complex ideas and try to simplify it. And it's simple. You have a hole in your boat, right? It could be you not paying attention to your accounting or your numbers and really seeing where you're spending. Getting control of that, you'll be surprised. I mean, you're not going to be surprised because that's what you do every day, Andrew. But that's what I would suggest is find a professional like Andrew, other financial professionals that can say, hey, listen, here's how you need to optimize your business for you to kind of get the reins of this thing, get a control of the business again. And then after you have control, then you want to have 2, 3, 4 quarters that show that the changes that you've made are actually showing up on the bottom line. And if once that happens, now you can say, now I need to go to scale. But you should almost never be looking for an equity injection of capital unless you're looking to scale and go to the next level, meaning that you've gotten all of your ducks in a row. Everything is tight now. Your accounting is good, right? Your HR department has everything in line. Your suppliers are in order, right? Everyone is in lockstep. Your business is running smoothly, streamlined, and now you're saying, now I have things under control. Let's go to the next level. You don't want to be falling off the cliff saying, well, I need to get to the next level. No, you need a parachute. You need to figure out a way to stop this fall first before even equity. And a lot of times I know a lot of times we think that money is going to solve everything, right? But oftentimes money is not the issue. You quite often it's really just it's mismanagement of the business. And once that's fixed, because no amount of money is going to fix a mismanaged business. That's kind of the gist of it. It's like, no matter how much money I give you, if you're running it into the ground, that's going to continue. So let's right the ship first and then get to the next level.
Okay, no, that's a great point. That could be a touchy subject because a lot of people that don't think they're mismanaging their business probably are mismanaging their business, and I run into that in a lot of coaching and consulting.
Yeah,
so
and you know what, Andrew, you know how we speak about it, and I'm sure you do too, is that Fortune 100 companies are mismanaged too. This is not something that is only for small businesses. No. The publicly traded companies are mismanaged every day, and that's what makes the market, right? One set of investors believes that it's being managed properly. Another set of investors thinks that they're going completely the wrong way, right? And each side has valid points. So as small business owners, it's okay to be mismanaged and feeling the need to be corrected. GM, GE, Bank of America, they hire consultants all of the time to come in and sort of kick the tires and make sure that they're doing things properly, as should you.
Okay. So definitely, nobody knows everything. And so, there's always room to grow and room to develop. As bad as you're doing, I can guarantee you I've worked with someone who's doing worse in every aspect of your badness. So it's not an uncommon thing, but if you want to grow, if you want to make more money, if you want to get financing, you're going to have to continually work to run your business as well as possible and learn how to continually run it better. That's definitely a key point. But so now a lot of businesses are small. One of the things I always say is, if you're in business, you need to get to at least 100,000 as quickly as possible in revenues. And there's a certain level of scale you need to achieve, or revenues or whatever, to for your business to be viable. And a lot of times people don't know what that is, and many times most small business owners aren't at that level. So can you talk a little bit about that, what that means, and why it's important?
I think the premise that you laid out, and what I loved about the book, is getting to $100,000 as quickly as possible. I think that's kind of keeps you in the game and gives you your income, right? For a lot of people, that could replace their income and sustain their lifestyle and keep the lights on, that sort of thing. But also, it gets you to know whether or not your business model is actually working. That's sort of the number of tweaking, right? If you get to 100,000, how long did it take you? And now you have some numbers that you can utilize to kind of model that out for yourself, to let you know, hey, well, I did this much to get to 100,000. If I double this kind of production, I might be able to get to 200,000. It's really the numbers before 100,000 is kind of it's hit or miss. I think you did really good with that number of, hey, if you got revenues of 100,000, you have that coming in, not necessarily a profit, but the revenues are there, and you're saying, hey, I can make this work. There's something here. That there's that what you're doing, there's a market for. And I think that having that proof of efficacy is saying, hey, I know that this thing can be viable. Let me fine tune it and get this to the next level. I think that number was really on target.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because definitely you got to have a market for your products and services. And if you can't get to 100,000, then it's hard to grow and it's hard to scale.
Yeah.
And if you can't, then there's something you got to work on. Either you have a financial problem, a lack of capital problem, probably a marketing problem and a selling problem, maybe a product or service problem, customer service. Usually it's on the marketing side, but very important to make sure that people are willing to buy it and buy it at the price you're going to set. You're selling it at.
And Andrew, to pick your brain, ask you a question. Mm-hmm. When it comes to that number, do you often advise that if people, before you get there, don't quit your day job kind of thing? But, if you can do it, if you can run your business part-time and scale it until you get to 100,000 in revenue, keep your day job. Is that a suggestion you would give some people?
I wouldn't say it's really hard to get to 100,000 with a day job, but I would say you need to get to at least like 10, and or work part-time. The key is you don't want to draw down the resources of your company to live on. Right. Because either that you should wait longer, you need to save some more money. Never hurts to save more money, because the more money of yours you put in, the better. In most cases, and but real money, not borrowed money. So
right.
So yeah, no, definitely.
No, you're right. So. Because investors do not want to hear that you've got no skin in the game, right? They want to hear, hey, listen, I put my $250,000 into this. They want to hear that, right? They want to hear that, you back yourself, not just utilizing my money to fulfill your dream, but you're willing to put your money where your mouth is.
Mm-hmm. And it's a question of character. If you can't manage your own money well enough to save, how comfortable is someone else willing to give you their money? Definitely a lot of pieces. So, one thing that happens is an hour is really not much time. So we're pretty much there. But what I like to do is, before we wrap up, ask our guests to really take a second to think about, what are 3 key things people should take away from this conversation that they can start to implement tomorrow. I'll give you a minute to think about it. And what I'm going to do is just share our most recent event. We had a Power Breakfast and Conference event at the end of July, 28th and 29th. It was our 10th year anniversary. And, we had some really good sponsors. We had some really good speakers. We had great panelists, including Damien. He was on the topic of maximizing the value of your business. So definitely, they don't come around that often, but when they come around, it's a great experience. So you should consider checking it out. At this time, I don't have the date for the next one, but I'm working on trying to get something. But while you're thinking about that, I'll just show a 1-minute video so people can get a better feel for what the Power Breakfast really is. If you are looking to increase revenues, improve profitability, and or obtain financing for your business, you need to check out the Power Breakfast and Small Business Pro conferences. My name is Andrew Frazier. One of the things we're here to do is supercharge your day.
Today's Power Breakfast has really been a phenomenal experience. I think it's exactly what business owners need, some true guidance of people who are genuine and really are leading them in the true direction of business growth and expansion.
The Power Breakfast is so important for the entrepreneurial community because it gives the various business people who come together an opportunity to interact and also do some business.
These events, hosted by Andrew Frazier, President and COO of Small Business Like a Pro, will supercharge your day.
Hey, Damien. We're back with Damien Jackson. Just closing out today's session, which has been great. He's just going to share 3 things that you should take away from what we discussed today, and you can start implementing tomorrow to help make your business be more successful.
So number one, I would strongly suggest really taking and how you're going to be able to optimize your enterprise, right? No matter where you're at on the revenue scale, you want to make sure that you have a full understanding of where you are and where you want to be, and then you want to work with professionals to help build your bridge to get you there. This is very key, is your family and friends round. I really do think that's the lost round for Main Street businesses. I think that we can better utilize our friends and family. And I think having a third party come in and make sure that, all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and everybody feels comfortable. I think that's a way to help people really get to the next level. And then the resources around you, right? So there's a tremendous amount of resources that small businesses are not utilizing, whether it be professionals that they hire or programs in place that actually do benefit their business that they're not aware of. You should be out there really trying to understand what affects your business, who are the key players in it, how do they get around some of the issues that you have, understanding your competitors, how do they get around some of those issues, how can you get in front of them. All of those things are available. All of that information is available, whether it be, IBIS reports, and you can understand your industry at a higher level. I think those things come into play for Main Street businesses on an everyday level. And if you get your arms around those 3 things, I think that you're going to right your ship. You're going to then get your family and friends involved, and you'll be able to get some capital there. And then you never know, there might be some programs in place that might be able to give you some additional funding and give you an opportunity that you didn't even know was available. And then we start building from there. And of course, then the sky's the limit.
Excellent. So go through your business with a fine-tooth comb, start with friends and family, take advantage of resources available, because many times people don't. That's great places to start. This has been a tremendous conversation. Appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. And all. So I've got your website and your LinkedIn in the chat or in the whatever comments. So if you want to connect with Damien, he'd be glad to connect with you further. And thanks for hanging out. Hang on a few minutes, Damien. Let me just close out, and I'll be back. So again, another episode of Leadership Live. We've been going strong for over 2 years, every single Tuesday. So definitely appreciate continued participation, and look forward to continuing for many more years. We haven't missed one single Tuesday. And next week, I actually have a conflict because I'm getting an award at an event by Empower the Village. So my guest host is Arthur Jones, and we actually started Leadership Live at 8:05 together. So you'll get a chance to see him again. Really sharp guy. And he'll have a guest. So next week I'll try and jump in for a minute, but Arthur's gonna run the show, and looking forward to a great show. So hopefully we'll catch you next week. At the end of the day, the more you know, the faster your business is going to grow, and that's why we have Leadership Live at 8:05.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.